Good evening and welcome to the Southbridge Town Council meeting on Monday, March 25th, 2019. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councillor Adams.
Present.
Councillor Daniel. Present. Councillor DePietro. Councillor Jovan.
Present.
Councillor Manna. Present. Councillor Nash. Present. Councillor Steves.
Present. Do have a quorum. Item 3, consider and accept the Town Council minutes of Monday, March 11th, 2019. So moved. Discussion, errors, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Councilor Nash abstains. Item 3A, consider and accept the amended Town Council minutes of Monday, February 25th, 2019. Any corrections, errors, or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Councilor Nash abstains. Subcommittee reports. General Government, Councilor Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can anybody hear me? We had a meeting on Monday, March 18th, and several of the items are on tonight's agenda, 19, 20, and 21. And unfortunately, I have not finished the minutes yet, so I don't have anything specifically to report. We do not have another meeting scheduled at the moment.
Thank you. Department of Public Works, Councilor DePietro. Councilor DePietro is absent this evening, so we do not have a report. Education and Human Services, Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Chairman Jovan. We had 2 meetings in the past 2 weeks, one on March 13th, which featured Dr. Villar, who talked about the state of the schools, a very informative meeting, and it was videotaped. It will be on cable TV, I guess, shortly when it's finished being produced. We had a meeting on the 21st of March with Mr. LaFleche from Baypath, who discussed his budget, and again, that meeting was videotaped and will also be on TV when that's finished being produced. We have 2 agenda items tonight that are relevant to our committee, and I'll discuss them at the appropriate time. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, we have not had a meeting since our last town council meeting. I do have a couple that I will be planning for the month of April. One with Green Meadows and another one with the airport and economic development team. That's all I have.
Thank you. Protection of Persons and Property, Councilor Manna.
Chair, we did have a meeting last week, and we have several agenda items on tonight's meeting agenda with regards to an appointment for a full-time sergeant and some auxiliary. There is a PPP meeting planned for April 4th at 7 p.m., and that's just going to be one agenda item, and it's going to be to discuss trying to find some money for our police department so they can get up to a better staffing situation. Thank you. Thank you.
Chairman's announcements. First off, on behalf of the Southbridge Town Council, wish to extend our condolences to the family of Dr. Robert Lebo, who passed away unexpectedly on Friday, March 15th. Dr. Lebo had opened his private practice in Southbridge in 1987. He provided primary care medical services to Southbridge and the surrounding communities. For many years, he served as the chief of internal medicine at Harrington Hospital, as well as our town physician for the town of Southbridge, as well as medical director for several area nursing homes. So on behalf of the council, we extend our condolences to his family. Furthermore, if there's no objection, I'd like to take items 9 through 15 out of order. They deal with the appointments of the full-time police sergeant, several auxiliary police officers, as well as other members, and put that before the presentations so that we have family members here, and given the length of the presentation, it'd be nice to let them be recognized and do whatever we do for the appointments so that they can go and do their family party. So if there's no objection, sorry. Thank you. That's all I have this evening. Town manager's announcements.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, this has been, the last couple of weeks have been all about the budget, and I'm going to have plenty to speak about when we get to the budget presentation. So that's the only comments I'll make this evening.
Thank you. Citizens forums. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the Southbridge Town Council on any item that is not on the agenda this evening? Anyone wishing to address the council? Just please state your name and your address for the record.
Hi, my name is Art Theodos. I live in Southbridge, 395 High Street, and I've been a citizen of Southbridge all my life. What I'd like to know is, I noticed we have a few councilors missing tonight. Are all of you councilors live in Southbridge?
Mr. Theodos, I think that's an inappropriate question. In order to be elected a councilor in the town of Southbridge, you have to live in the town of Southbridge?
Right.
So I don't understand where your question's coming from.
Right,
In order to be an elected official, you have to be a registered voter of the town of Southbridge.
I understand that. But what I was leading up to was if their parents still live in Southbridge also, and do they own property in Southbridge?
I don't think any councilors have to answer that question. I'm sure your question is, I know my fellow councilors, we all live in Southbridge. The majority of us own property in Southbridge. Yeah. So again, I'm not sure what your point is to this council, why you're asking that question.
All right, so what brings me up here is...
Because Mr. Theodos, with all due respect, if you're questioning whether anybody owns property in the town of Southbridge, you could go to the Board of Assessors office, and they would gladly tell you if I own property at 80 Highland Street in the town of Southbridge.
Right.
If my aunt owns property at 456 Brecknick Street, and whether my grandparents came from Albania and lived on Moore Street for 50 years.
Right.
So that's all public record.
Okay.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but the question is, I can't believe you're asking the question.
Well, I can't believe a lot of things that happen in Southbridge also. But the reason why I'm here is a lot of people have asked where I meet and have coffee with different people about having somebody come up here and speak about Southbridge, you know. And what I want to know is, first of all, most people that I talk to, I'd say 90% are in favor of rebuilding the fire station, keeping it where it is, and enforcing the land where the park is next door so they can have probably another 20 yards. I mean, how many trucks do we need in Southbridge, really? And to enforce the land over to where the monument is and bring the monument up closer to the sidewalk, 15 yards away from the sidewalk. Then you got the whole back of the monument, 50 yards down for people to park, either working at the town hall or the fire department or whatever, you know. So what I want to tell you is that most people are in favor of rebuilding the fire department to keep the taxes down in Southbridge because they're high enough. I think we're number 9 in the whole county of Massachusetts. That's pretty high, you know. And the other thing is when they talked about the fire department, the building itself, a lot of people said, along with the contractor, oh, the building's really bad, this and that, it's got to be done over. The best way to go about it is to rebuild a new one and not fix the old one. Well, they said the same thing about Southbridge High, the one on Cole Ave, you know. They wanted to rebuild it and all that, but people were against it. Now you look at Southbridge High and Cole Ave, there's many businesses working there. You know, it's almost full. So the high school in Southbridge up on Golford Road, I think was a bad choice. That's my own opinion, you know. And we're paying taxes for that. I guess that's about it.
Okay.
That's all I want to say is most of the people I spoke to, they're in favor of rebuilding, extending it towards the park, and moving the monument up front instead of bringing it up to some field or some high school or grammar school, you know.
So thank you for bringing those comments to us. I appreciate those comments because those are well taken. As far as the Fire Station Building Committee goes, there has been no determination. The presentation was before council at our last meeting. It's open for further dialogue. I would encourage anyone, if that group of citizens that are conveying that information, including yourself, if you wish, the Fire Station Building Committee has regular meetings in which we're going to further discuss the project. So I would encourage you, I believe the week of April 8th is the next scheduled meeting. We don't have the exact date, maybe Wednesday night or Tuesday night of that week, but it will be posted meeting. Anybody that wishes to come and talk about their concerns on that, we'll gladly have that conversation with any resident that wants to come and talk about how and what the best project is going to be for that fire station. Because I do know, as a counselor and my fellow colleagues, we do have a concern over what the tax implications will be, and that's why we're aggressively looking for outside grants as well before it becomes to the voters. So any information on that we'll gladly look at. As far as the new high school versus the old high school, there was a lot of factors that went into that. I'm not going to debate that tonight, but I would gladly sit with you at any time, Mr. Theodos, and have a cup of coffee, because I was intimately involved in that project as well, and discuss the reason why we had to build a new middle school, high school, and the reason why we retained the existing building, and what, as we get through this budget process, what we may see as the savings that the town of Southbridge have received, because we do have programs that we brought back to that building. So I'll gladly have that conversation with you. And as we go through the budget process, we'll make that public as well.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience wishes to address the council? Anyone else? Again, Mr. Theodos, I apologize about my earlier comments about residency. However, we are all residents and we are all taxpayers, and we share the same burden as everyone else. So I apologize if I came across crass. My apologies. With that, moving on. Again, town manager's presentation, or the presentation, which will be the town of Southbridge fiscal year budget presentation, will be after these appointments. Item 9, vote to confirm the appointment of Ryan Chase as a permanent full-time police sergeant for the town of Southbridge, effective immediately.
Second.
A motion is second. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before the chief presents the candidate for sergeant, I just want to make a comment. I had the opportunity to interview the two candidates for sergeant, and I just want to say how impressed I am with the quality of officers we have within the Southbridge Police Department. Either one of the two candidates could have been selected as sergeant. The gentleman before you, you'll see, as the chief talks about his experience, is an exceptional candidate. But I just wanted to state for the record that we have a great contingent of officers, any one of them that can move up within their ranks. And I want to commend the chief for working with individual officers, helping them build their skills, and putting them, a lot of them in a position where they could go into the management part of the department. So thank you. Chief Whitson.
If I could quickly, thank you, members of the council, Mr. Town Manager, for having us here tonight. Just to kind of backtrack a little bit on that, we had given a sergeant's test through civil service back on January 18th of 2018. An exam like this is good for 3 years before it expires. The cost is somewhere around $6,500. We had already promoted 2 sergeants off this same list. They were still valid. We had a list of eligible candidates. Town Manager and I had interviewed 2 candidates on March 7th. I have a sergeant retiring in April, on April 17th to be exact. This position's already budgeted in my existing FY19 budget. I put it into my FY20 budget. No new cost to the community. It's a needed position. Now, if I can talk a little bit about the candidate who stands here on the side of me. Mr. Chase has an associate's degree currently in criminal justice, plans on completing his bachelor's degree by next year. He's been with our department for about 7 years now. The first 5 years he served in patrol. While he was in patrol, he also served as a field training officer. I know most of you have heard me talk about this before, but that's a key position within our department. You don't get selected to be a field training officer unless you're a good street cop and you know what you're doing. He represents our department well. He was a detective for 2 years. We investigated narcotics crimes, any other major crime that happens in our community. You know, he has an impeccable service record with our department, and I could not recommend him more highly to the promotion of sergeant.
Thank you. Discussion? On behalf of the Protection of Persons and Property, Council Manager, do you have a recommendation?
He came fully recommended by the PPP subcommittee that night.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you raise your right hand, sir? Do you, Ryan Chase, solemnly swear to perform all duties incumbent of you as a sergeant for the Southbridge Police Department for an indefinite period of time, faithfully and impartially, according to the laws of the Commonwealth, and abide by the charter and bylaws of the town of Southbridge, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't want to knock this over because he'll kill me. You want it? I just need you to sign right here. And I also have to give you the open meeting law. And the conflict of interest, so if you just sign your name right there, please. And these are for you, and congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you. Just gonna stand this way.
Yeah, right.
Congratulations, Sergeant Chase. Item 10. 10 through 10, 11, and 12 are auxiliary officer appointments. Item 10, vote to confirm the appointment of Zachary Budano as an auxiliary police officer for the town of Southbridge effective immediately through June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion? Discussion? Chief Wood?
If I could again, Mr. Badano, who stands here beside me, he completed the Reserve Intermediate Academy, which is approximately 372.5 hours of training. That's 2 days a week and every weekend for 5 to 6 months, all voluntary at a huge expense to all three of the candidates here before you. They've all completed it. Mr. Badano is actually a Transportation Security Administration TSA agent right now, works for at Logan Airport as a Transportation Security Officer, sorry. He's a Maynard PD dispatcher also, and he has an associate's degree in Quincy Community College. I believe this is going to be his first experience as a law enforcement officer, and we highly recommend him to be an auxiliary.
Thank you, Chief.
Want me to, can I do all three? Or?
You want to do all three at the same time?
I have no problems with all three.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Vote to confirm the appointment of Justina Lapierre as auxiliary police officer for the town of Southbridge, effective immediately. Well, let's take a vote on Zachary first, and then we'll go through, and then he can take them through.
Sure.
Okay? So all those in favor of appointment of Zachary Budano? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Vote to confirm the appointment of Justina Lapierre as auxiliary police officer for the town of Southbridge, effective immediately through June 30th, 2022. Motion? Second. Motion and second. Chief?
And again, Ms. Lapierre also completed the 372.5-hour reserve training back in 2017. She's an auxiliary police officer for the Charlton Police Department, where she's been for almost 2 years now. She's worked at the Barkwood Inn. She's worked at Market Basket. She was an intern at Fitchburg PD, and I highly recommend her for the position of auxiliary police officer.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Vote to confirm the appointment of Paul Sojan II as auxiliary police officer for the town of Southbridge, effective immediately through June 30th, 2022, upon completion of the Reserve Intermediate Academy in April of 2019. Chief?
Mr. Sujin will actually graduate from that academy on April 16th. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Communications. He's currently a full-time dispatcher with us, where he's been for just about 3 years now. He has an impeccable service record with us, and I highly recommend him for the position of auxiliary police officer.
Any further discussion? Mr. Nash? Councilor Nash, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just really quickly, once again, the police department, certainly the police chief has done a fine job selecting high-quality candidates for the community, and I, for one, am very grateful to once again see such great people coming forward to work with your department. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
I echo that. Thank you, Chief. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Congratulations, candidates. Item 13, vote to confirm the appointment of James Cullors to the Board of Trustees for Soldiers, Sailors, Marines, and Airmen Memorials effective immediately through June 30th, 2021. Discussion? Councilor Daniel?
No agenda item were both unanimously confirmed by the committee, subcommittee.
Thank you, Council. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. I'm going to give it a couple minutes and just let everybody clear out. Take a recess for 2 minutes. Okay, we're back in session. Item 14, vote to confirm the appointment of Daricel Lopez to the Board of Trustees for Soldiers, Sailors, Marines, and Airmen Memorials, effective immediately through June 30th, 2021. Is there a motion?
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Adams? I mean, Councilor Dan, yeah. Whoever you are. Councilor Adams. It's only, what time is it?
Too early.
7:30. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So if this is voted on, this will be the fourth individual for the trustees board, which will make, with these two add-ons, would make a quorum for that board. So we'll start probably working, I'll work on an agenda come April for our first meeting. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Vote to confirm the reappointment of Caitlin Spencer as Inspector of Animals for a one-year term effective April 1st, 2019 through April 30th, 2020, in accordance with provisions of Section 15 of Chapter 129 Mass General Laws. Discussion? The Chief just informed me earlier this evening that this is required by law that it has to be once a year, so. No further, Councilor Nash?
Someone has to say something nice, Mr. Chairman. Caitlin is a fantastic resource to our community. I think she does a fantastic job, and she was probably one of the most qualified people we could have gotten for that position. She's superb, she's a great asset, and I'm really pleased to see that this keeps coming up and she chooses to stay with our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do know, working in other towns, trying to find an inspector and an animal control officer is very difficult, so we are thankful that we do have her. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. We will now move into presentations, the Town of Southbridge fiscal year 2020 budget. Mr. Town Manager.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council. I'm excited tonight to present the fiscal 2020 budget. And I don't often say that about budgets, but in thinking about where we were and where we are today, it's been a great process. And by having the Town Council and my office work together, I think we've made significant achievement over the last 3 years. I think many of you recall in fiscal year 2017, the town was using $850,000 of free cash in its operating budget. That is no longer a problem. We are no longer using free cash in the operating budget, but it is allowing us now to use free cash to buy capital items, and that's a huge improvement because we can buy those capital items without borrowing. In fiscal year 2018, I think everyone is aware that we were concerned about losing the landfill royalty money from the landfill, and that was going to bring disaster upon the town. But working together, the Town Council and I were able to eliminate that $920,000 of Casella money from the operating budget. And in fact, no layoffs occurred, no disaster happened. And I'm very proud to be able to say, by working together, we are no longer dependent on landfill royalties to run this town. I think that's a huge achievement, and I appreciate the board's work in that issue. In fiscal year 2019, we had the issue of the new charter school opening in Southbridge. Again, hundreds of thousands of dollars of added cost to the town. Again, working together, the Town Council and my office, we're able to deal with that issue, and we are no longer in a crisis situation as a result to that charter school. We've met that task, and we're able to get ourselves in a situation where we're not under a crisis. So the fiscal 2020 budget is our first year in the years that I've been here where we have a sound and strong financial budget that is responsible and does not use any short-term revenues to balance the budget. So key points, responsible fiscal management. That's what this budget does. It's responsible fiscal management, and it makes sure that we spend money appropriately. Controlled government spending. We're not spending wildly. It's a budget that simply meets the needs of the people of Southbridge. Improving public safety, I'm going to talk about that aspect, and the Town Council is working on that particular issue, and we're going to talk a little bit about it as we get into the budget process. Developing a road improvement fund. I'm going to get into this issue. This is an issue that has been extremely important to members of the Town Council, and in fact, extremely important to all the citizens in Southbridge. It's probably the most talked about issue, improving town roads. Centralizing public safety dispatch. This is an issue that the town council and I have been working on the last couple of years to be able to improve the services we provide in terms of responding to emergency calls. And we're going to centralize our public dispatch system, and I think it's going to be a real improvement for public safety. Meeting the needs of the citizens. This budget doesn't go too far. It's not an extravagant budget, but it simply meets the needs of the people of the town. And it builds a stronger future. You're going to see why that is. This is a budget that really, I think, leads us in a real positive way into the future. Last year and the last couple of years, we've had this as a vision statement. I want to read it. Southbridge must be fiscally responsible, have a budget in place that meets the needs of its citizens, and the vision to look strategically at the long-term infrastructure of this community. The goals and objective that this budget sets out for: modest improvement in current services, establishing a road improvement fund to improve town roads, finalize the development of the Southbridge Central Dispatch for Emergency Services, improve public safety, a quicker response to fires and ambulance calls, and we're going to be utilizing a SAFER grant to do that. Reduce the need for budget transfers and to properly fund departments. This is an issue we've talked about in the budget process. Why are some budget line items underfunded, and how do we deal with that particular situation? Work with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to improve funding to our school district, enhance the quality of education for our children, and ensure that the citizens have confidence in the education provided to our students. Continue to utilize free cash for one-time capital purchases, reducing the need to borrow for smaller capital purchases, and build on and strengthen our 6-year capital improvement plan. Most of all, a nice side benefit, I think we're going to talk about later, is increased funding to our stabilization fund, which is our town savings account. Prepare to meet the challenges of the future. Now, today's situation and the big issue, I think, one of the biggest issues of this budget is the current situation with town roads. People in Southbridge all the time ask us, why are the roads in the condition they are? Well, it's really clear. We get about $500,000 in Chapter 90 money, which is state funds that they give to the municipality in order to improve our roads. That doesn't go anywhere near close to the amount we need to maintain our roads. $500,000 doesn't even keep our roads at the current levels, but that's the state funding that comes down. As of today, there is no local tax dollars being used to fund roads through the town budget. This budget has a strategy for the future, and it's a strategy that I know that I've talked with many councilors about. Particular Councilor Steves and I have had this discussion numerous times. How do we move forward and start going down the path to improve town roads? This budget adds $100,000 to the operating budget in order to start a process of funding local roads by using some local tax dollars as well. So in fiscal year 2020, we're going to add $100,000, and this is where the town council and I are going to have to work together over the next 5 years to continuously build the road improvement fund by $100,000 each year over the next 5 years. Now, what will this do? This long-term plan will double our funding at the end of 5 years for the repair replacement of town roads and gradually increase the spending in each fiscal year. We had a February 2012 pavement management plan or a study that stated that it would cost about $1 million a year to simply maintain our current town road pavement conditions. At the end of 5 years, the $500,000 in Chapter 90, adding $500,000 of town money, will get close to being able to just maintain roads at their current standards. Now, let's be clear about this. This is a good step, and we're going to move in the right direction. While this will have a positive impact on local roads, it will not resolve the fact that it will cost millions of dollars to update our infrastructure to a level that we would all find acceptable. So we're on the right path. We're going to move forward. I think taxpayers will love this, that we're actually stepping up to the plate and starting to deal with that road issue. Now, because we have a stable budget this year, I think this is the time to begin that plan. Another big public safety item, I talked a little bit at the opening, is what we are calling a new central dispatch. Right now, our fire dispatch and police department dispatch are in 2 different locations. Last year, we took a step to start consolidating that under a combined central dispatch of police and fire. Last year, we added a couple of dispatchers, and we started the foundation of it. We put money aside for infrastructure. This year, we're going to finalize the investment in that plan. We'll be hiring 2 more dispatchers, $50,000 each. We're going to have a lead person who leads that dispatch center. We're going to give them a little bit of a stipend. The per diem impact coverage of $40,000, it means when people are on vacation or people are sick, we have to have somebody to replace those people. So we need some money in there for times when people are in and out of the department. And then health insurance costs, of course, for both employees is about $30,800. So this budget adds about $180,800 to finalize central dispatch, and we're excited about seeing that happen because that has some tremendous benefits for the town in terms of improving the dispatch process, but it also does something else. It has a huge impact on our fire department. We've talked about this. Right now, we have 6 firemen on a shift. 5 are firefighters, and we have 1 dispatcher. What this is going to allow us to do is take that 1 officer who's on dispatch. We have 4 different shifts, so it's 4 officers, 4 firemen, and going to allow them to be put back onto the shifts. So that gives us six firefighters per shift. Now, again, we're not adding any new staff at the fire department. We're simply reassigning the dispatch people back to the regular fireman line duty, and they'll be able to give us better coverage. Now, the benefit of this is that it will allow us potentially to do more ambulance calls, and ambulance calls are a revenue-generating program for the town. So, in fact, we may capture more revenue because if a second ambulance call comes in and we're busy, we have to give that to another town, and they make the revenue off that call. Now, we don't know what that revenue will be now, so we're not adding any revenue to the budget yet, but we're going to look at the history over the next couple of years, and then as we see that increased revenue come in, we can book that as a revenue, and that will help to offset this program. Okay? This is going to also improve our ability to respond to fires as well, because instead of having 5-minute shift, we'll now have 6 people per shift. Now, on top of that, the Town Council has recently discussed the issue of applying for a SAFER grant. A SAFER grant is a federal grant where the federal government is trying to help communities all throughout the country to improve public safety through a grant process to make it easier for us to hire additional firemen. This Town Council believes very strongly that we need to improve public safety, and they recently voted to apply for this particular grant. Now, how does this work? We would be adding 4 additional firefighters to our fire department, 1 per shift. Okay, the cost of that, if you look in column 1 here, the personnel costs, in other words, the labor costs, are $218,464 a year. The benefits are $93,356. So the total cost of 4 firemen for a year is $311,820. Now, the next line is what's important. In this year's budget, we would have to put in approximately $77,955, which is 25% of the cost of 4 firemen in this year's budget. The federal government is going to pick up $233,865 of the cost of these firemen. So this is a 3-year program that's going to help the town of Southbridge and protects the taxpayers from that big shift in hiring 4 people all at once. The same is true in fiscal year 2021, the second year. Again, they're going to pick up 75% of the cost of those firemen, and the town will only pick up 25%. In the third year, the town will then have to pay $202,683. That's 65% of the total cost of the firemen. Now, what's good about this is we feel that there's some things happening in town that we're going to get new revenues from. Solar fields that are coming online, the medical marijuana facility, we see added revenues coming into the town, and we believe that some of those revenues are going to offset this cost in the long term. So we see that as a positive. After the third year, the town will then have to pay the entire cost, that $311,000 or so of funds, the town will pick up that cost. And that will then, as I was telling you, we had 6 firefighters a shift. This will give us 7. Now, if you talk to the fire chief and the deputy fire chief, under fire standards throughout the country, for the amount of population size, we should have at least 8 and really more like 10 firefighters at one time on a shift. So Southbridge is going to be at the sort of national firefighter requirements, but we're moving in a good direction, and this is going to add improved public safety to the citizens of the town. Also, it's not just a firefighter, they also do medical work, so there'll be ambulance drivers as well. Now, to get into the overall budget, this next slide is really important. This is something we call the state cherry sheet. This is all the revenues that the town gets from the state of Massachusetts. You'll see that in 2019, we got a little over $25 million. In fiscal year 27, we got $26,924,000. This year, we got an increase from state government of $1,689,974. That is huge compared to what we got last year, and I'll talk about that a little later. The biggest amount of increase here was through Chapter 70 money, where you'll see the difference between fiscal year 19 and 20 is $1,214,910. That's because the state government under Governor Baker and Polito are trying to increase funding for school systems that need it and trying to add more money, particularly to cities and communities that are poorer in nature. So you'll see a big increase this year for our district, which will help our school system improve. UGGA is just unrestricted general government funds. It's 98 grand. The state gives us, we can spend any way we want. Last year, we had a big issue with charter schools, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But in fiscal year 19, we only got a reimbursement of $157,286 as reimbursement for the kids we sent to the charter school. This year, that number has jumped tremendously to $540,982, or an increase of $380,000 and $696. Now, later, I'm going to show you that the assessments went up with charter schools, but it's still much better than had we not gotten this significant increase. Minor revenues, we lost about $6,846. Not too much to worry about there. Now, this goes to the impact of charter schools. Many of you heard last year about the big crisis that charter school was coming in. It was going to cost us a lot of money. It was diverting money away from our school system to the charter school. And this demonstrates that. Last year, the charter school assessment in 2019 was $949,981. This year, in fiscal 2020, it's $1,251,042. There's about 17 new students this year that are going to go into that charter school, and that's because the charter school added a new grade. So there's going to be kids going in. But a big difference here is the assessment of the reimbursement from the state. In 2019, the reimbursement was only $157,286, but look at the reimbursement this year, $540,982. So in fact, the cost of the charter school this year actually decreased to us for about $82,635. So that's a decrease in the overall cost to the town of the charter school this year, in spite of the fact more kids are going. Chapter funding, this is where I talked to you about the big difference from last year to this year. Last year, we got a $69,420 increase over fiscal year 18. It was nothing. As you know, we basically did not give an increase to the school committee last year or to the school system. This year, it went up to $1,214,910. A tremendous increase in the Chapter 70 money resulted in a net revenue gain between the 2 years of $1,145,490. That's going to go directly to our school system for them to improve the educational services in the town of Southbridge. Now, there's another set of expenses that, we give a bunch of money to our school district, but there's a set of expenses that are paid for by the town budget, not directly given to the school system. I want to talk about those because they're important. Health insurance, workers' compensation, property liability insurance, pension, those are all costs that are paid for by the town side of the budget. So yes, we're funding this money on behalf of the school district, but it doesn't go to their budget. It's not given to them, so it doesn't look like they're getting the money from the town. But in fact, they're getting $153,000 from town government. That's an added expense on top of whatever we give them directly. And remember that number because I'm going to come back to it in a little bit. So to kind of give you the bigger picture of how we fund our school system, I developed this chart, and you'll see the column to the left side. You'll see a section of numbers that describe the money we're giving to the school district. I told you we're getting the $82,635 was extra money from the charter school. We're going to give that to the Southbridge Public School District. $101,288, that's less money we have to pay from school choice that would come back to the town budget. $100,000 is added money from the town budget that I'm proposing that we give to the school district. That's a total of $283,923 of direct funds that we will be giving on top of the state funds for Chapter 70 to the school district. Okay? Then, I told you about that 153 number to remember. Those are the expenses we pay for out of the town budget. So in total, again, to the school district, we'll be increasing funding to education by about $437,833 from the town side of the budget, okay? The middle column now, if you look at the very top number, $1,214,910, that's the amount of money we're getting from the state government for Chapter 70 funding. We added $283,000, and that comes to a total of $1,498,833. That's the direct money we're giving to our school system for them to pay for their expenses, okay? The third column, it shows again the state funding, the $1,214,910. You add the total 437, which is 1.63%. That town contribution is 1.63% of our town budget. So it's a significant amount of money from our town budget that we're giving directly to the school system. You add that together, that includes the $153,000 in the total contribution to the school district. And I mean, I'm just talking school district, not charter schools, not choice schools, just the public school district, is $1,652,743.
Council?
Yep, want to go back? Sure.
Does that amount include, thank you, may I, Mr. Chair? I'm sorry.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Does that include Bay Path?
No. This is only the school district itself. No Bay Path, no charter schools, no choice schools. Direct funding to the Southbridge
public schools. And
yeah, just the Southbridge public
Bay
schools.
Path is a public school, so
Yeah, it's,
yeah, we
right. I'm
contribute.
talking about the Southbridge particular district.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to give town council some options, right? So a big goal of mine, quite frankly, in this budget, it was to fund this budget with no more than a 2.5% tax increase, which, as we all know, is the Proposition 2.5. It's been a tough 3 years. We've had to overcome some very difficult things. Taxes were slightly above that because we had some increased assessment ability. This budget, on the top line, you'll see my recommended budget. Recommended budget is for the fiscal year 19. You'll see the school budget at $26,786. We're increasing the budget for the school district by $1,483,833 for a proposed school budget of $285,568. Now, you'll see next in the line is the proposed tax levy. This results in a 2.5% tax increase to the town. That's all the cost of the entire budget, but including the school system at that level. Now, some councilors, and I know the school system will be talking about we need more. So I gave a couple of options here for your consideration during the budget process, same as I did last year. If we were to raise the tax rate another 0.5% to 3%, we would be able to give the school district, if you look in your dollar increase, an additional $105,000. If we wanted to give them an additional $210,000 in order to do that with no other changes, we would have to increase the tax rate to 3.5%. So you'll see that it's not a lot of dollars, but it does have a significant impact on the tax rate. But I wanted you to see that. I wanted to give you the option, as we're discussing this budget, some potential options for the town council to consider. Now, this is basically just a form our town assessor drafted up. And I want to take just a second to thank some people. All of my department heads have worked tremendously hard to put this budget together, and they've done so in a way to make sure that they put forward the most important programs up front so that we could fund the key things first. But I have 3 people who, in particular, worked their tails off on this budget process. Our town finance director is awesome. She does a great job. I couldn't do this without her. Karen Harnoy actually takes and implements and puts together all the information that we work on. We evaluate every town budget. It has to be evaluated by me and her as a team. We put this budget together, and I want to thank her for the work she does. Mindy Forner, I hope is the proper way to say the last name. I want to thank her. She's our treasurer collector. She works on a lot of our healthcare numbers and works with us to make sure we review. She's also she screens every word I write to make sure I have all the right information in it, so I want to thank her as well. And then the last guy is the guy that always puts together all these great charts in terms of the levies and stuff. Will Canoyer, he's our town assessor. He helps to put this together. I can't thank this team enough for the work they've done, not just in this year's budget, but over the last 4 years. They're awesome, and they've met the challenges of this town and done so in a fantastic way. So again, you'll see here, and this is where I have to use a couple of words specifically, the 2020 projected tax levy is $20,938,000. The 2019 tax levy is $21,124,000. So the increase, the gross increase of projected tax levy is $813,447, or about a 3.85% increase. Now, my key words, and I'm going to keep the signs from going up, is that this is, to get down to 2.5%, you'll see the next line in red, it says less new growth, $284,990. That new growth is important because that happens through the year, and that doesn't have an impact on current taxpayers. It's a result of new construction or additions. That's new growth. That's not the regular taxation on a regular individual home or individual business. That gives us a net 2.5% tax increase on citizens. That's the impact of the budget that I'm recommending. We'll also put together forms for the option number 1 that I told you about, which is an additional $105,000. What impact that would have on the levy and on the tax rate, you can see that all here as well. The same holds true with option number 2, so you have all the information to be able to make the decisions that you'd like in terms of the school budget. This is our whole revenue projection budget. This shows the added revenues that we're getting from various places, including the tax levy, which is a significant revenue increase that we see there. But also you're going to see what I talked about before, the charter school reimbursement. You'll see a 243.95% increase. That's the additional money I told you about with the charter school reimbursement, that $500-something thousand number. So that's really, really critical. Then we've had small increases throughout various areas, but this gives us the whole picture in terms of the revenues for the town. Now, as you know, when you do budget, revenues have to equal expenses to have a balanced budget. That's exactly what we have next. We have the expense side of the budget. Now, here you're going to see a couple of increases. You're going to see the police department budget that has gone up significantly because that's where the new dispatchers are. That's where the cost of that $180,000 news dispatchers are. So their budget is higher than normally what we see. You're also going to see a line that's a little bit past halfway down. It's called articles. That article line is where the $100,000 for the roads are. So that's where we're putting the road money. Now, it's not a $100,000 increase because some money has come out of that line, but you'll see that that's another significant increase in terms of the percentage as well. Whoops, I'm on the wrong one. That should be on the next, that's the next slide. I apologize. I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm sorry. This is the slide I was talking about, the special articles. That's where the road money is. It's a little more halfway down. You'll see it. That's where you're going to see the increase. Now, I want to point something out here that's really important. And you'll see it in red at the very bottom. You'll see that this is the general government operating budget. So this is the budget of all the different departments. You'll notice it's a 3.86% increase. Well, given the police department numbers and the money for the roads, that's not too high. But in effect, it should be 1% lower than that. And the reason is that it's written in red below. There are 26.2 pay periods in fiscal year 2020, or 262 workdays for all employees, instead of 26 pay periods or 260 workdays in 2019. This adds approximately 1% to the budget. So we have a couple of extra days in the work year this year in terms of this fiscal year budget. So that's increasing the budget, the operating budget, by 1%. So it's really not like it's an extra spending. It's just a mere fact that there's 2 more work days in the budget process. Okay, that'll show you. Now you'll see some larger increases in some small departments. In some small departments with a very small budget, if you add $1,000, it gives you these large percentage tax increases. But it's very small in terms of dollars. The big budget departments are your police department, your fire department, your DPW, and your health department. Those are generally your bigger town departments. And in most of those, with the exception of police, they're pretty modest. Now, there's a number of expenses beyond the town's control, things that no matter what we think, we can't do a heck of a lot about. And that's the insurance category with group health and life insurance, property casualty, workers' comp, unemployment, retirement costs. Those are kind of fixed numbers that are given to us, and there's not a lot we can do. I do want to comment, though, about the group health and life insurance. Mindy and I and Karen have attended meetings of a area grouping of towns, an insurance group, to look at potential options to consider leaving Maya, which provides our health insurance now. We did that because we were looking to see, is there a cheaper way to provide the same quality of insurance that we do our employees? I think that kind of puts some pressure on Maya to keep the rates low. So this year, the increase in group health insurance is 0.50. That's unheard of. And that's a result, I think, of that, us attending those meetings. I want to thank Mindy in particular and Karen for joining me in attending those meetings. But usually the health insurance costs, as you know, they go up by over 5%. So 0.50 is incredible in terms of our cost for health insurance. And then, of course, debt service is another line item. The cost of debt is in the budget. It goes up by whatever it goes up. We have not added any increased debt, really. Now, I think this is one of the things that I'm really proud about. Most of you understand we have something called a stabilization fund. And that stabilization fund is a savings account that the town has in case of major emergencies. One of the things that that stabilization account does, though, it helps in terms of our bond rating. And when auditors look at this account, they look to see, are you being responsible? Now, if you look at this account, even though we've had a difficult 4 years, we've had some struggles. We had the charter school. We had the issues with the free cash and with the landfill. You'll see that in the additions in fiscal year 2016, we added $275,000 to stabilization. In fiscal year 17, we added $300,000 to stabilization. Fiscal year 18, $125,000, and that's only because we added a lot of money for the Munis system. And this year, the proposed amount from free cash that we're proposing to go into the stabilization account is an additional $300,000. You look at the beginning fiscal 2016 year at $2,394,699, and you look at the ending balance at the end of fiscal year 2019, we're looking $3,546,814. That is a huge increase. We've added about over $1 million to our stabilization fund. That is a tremendous accomplishment in spite of the fact we've had difficult years. So it shows auditors that we are moving forward in a responsible way. We've not had to take any money out of stabilization for a number of years. That's been tremendous. The auditors would like you to have at least 5% of your budget in stabilization. This reflects a 6.2% percentage of our budget that's in our stabilization fund. So this is I'm really proud of this because I think it shows really good financial planning over the last 4 years, and it really protecting every spare dollar we have to make sure we put it in a savings account to protect the long-term interests of the town. So the future, the next steps of what we need to do, well, the town must continue to set aside that $100,000 every year for the roads if we want to get to the plan that we have to improve town roads. Police and fire departments, we need, now that we have all the revenue, we have all the staff, we need to finalize the actual construction of the central dispatch, get that done. We already have a contractor working with our police department to build that central dispatch. We need to get that finalized. I know the chief has already built the regulations that runs and operates this. They already have a good plan in place, and I think we'll see a central dispatch that we're all very proud of. DPW, this is an area where we need to work on in the future years. You know, we're trying to add money to the roads and stuff, but DPW is the one department where I think we need to really look at staff in the future, especially with the stormwater permitting it's going to happen in the future. So there, we're going to look at increasing staff to better maintain recreational areas in towns, our parks and playgrounds, and also to maintain roads. Provide additional funding to all town departments in order to maintain current town services. Because of the fiscal struggles that we went through, we gave 2% or increases for personnel costs for each department, but we essentially gave 0 increases to many town budgets, which really, when you don't give an increase to a town budget with the cost of inflation, you're actually giving them less money than the year before. And we've done that for the last 4 years. We've said, departments, okay, you can add the money for the labor contracts, but don't add $1 more. Departments have generally just taken cut after cut after cut. From now on, we have to at least give them enough money to maintain the current services that we have. Provide operating funds for other post-employment benefits. This is one of the issues that we were using Casella money for. We may use it one more time. We have some savings still in the Casella fund. We're probably going to be looking to add money one more time from that Casella fund. And then what we're looking at is the solar revenue coming in. It's supposed to be open this summer. The solars will get on track. And then eventually we're going to substitute that solar money. Will go into our budget to help pay for the OPEB costs. What we're trying to do there is build the OPEB trust fund in order to increase that fund over time to meet some of our unfunded liability when it comes to insurances. Just so people understand, OPEB, what that is the cost of employees, when they retire, the town still has to pick up a percentage of their insurance costs. That's funded every year in an annual way. We need to build up a fund like a pension fund where some of that money and the interest actually helps pay down that liability. So that's what we're trying to do. All towns across the state are trying to make improvements in this. Some towns are farther than others, but we're doing very well, and we want to keep on building up that trust fund. Free cash and long-term capital improvement plan. Free cash is being utilized for one-time capital projects. This over the long term is saving taxpayers money from not having to borrow money for these capital items. The process also protects and can improve our bond rating. We need to continue to implement our plan within available resources. Borrowing for large capital projects such as equipment and infrastructure must be considered. Not right away, but at some point in time, the fire department's going to need a new ladder truck. That's well over $1 million. At some point in time, we're going to have to think about borrowing money for that purpose. Also, I think we all know before us is the issue of a new fire station, and we need to decide, the town voters are going to have to decide if we want to move forward or not with a new fire station. But if we do, that's going to be an area where we're going to have to borrow money. What is good is that we have not been borrowing money over the last number of years. We have plenty of capacity to borrow. The real question is what can taxpayers afford and what will taxpayers vote, citizens vote to approve in terms of a new firehouse. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the budget. I really believe this sets up a good foundation for us to work from. I know it's going to go through the committee process, and I look forward to answering all the questions of the committee and working with you if there's any potential changes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the council.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Questions, discussion? Councilor Nash? Just give a second for him to get back to the table. Thank you.
Yeah, please. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to the town manager. First of all, thank you, and many thanks to your team for the hard work as we see time and again, year after year. I appreciate seeing that you acknowledge them. I've seen you do that before. I realize that you have very reputable members of your staff. So, a couple of quick questions. One comment first, and that is that on the stabilization fund, I'm glad that once you summarized that slide, you jumped right back over to the next page and mentioned that once again, you do intend to continue working with this town council to give more attention to the roads. I think it's an accomplishment, without a doubt, to be able to, excuse me, find $300,000 in free cash to go toward stabilization. And I'll just state that I'd love to see more money spent on roads. I think we all would. But as we've said time and again, and as we've heard from the DPW director in her presentation last year, we really need about $20 million with $1 million a year to maintain. So I see that $300,000. I'd love to see a little bit of that rather than going to see an overall increase the last 4 years in stabilization of $1 million. Find a few drops in the bucket, if you will, to go toward those roads. We need to start doing something now because that chapter, that state money doesn't do it as you said. But I'm cognizant of the fact that this is absolutely important, that we have good bond ratings. 6.2% is definitely an accomplishment, and I'm sure there's plenty of thanks to go toward Karen for working on that as well, so she has my thanks. I do have a question on your SAFER grant slides, and unfortunately I couldn't make it to the meeting a week ago, but when you look at the town cost of adding 4 new firefighters, I just wanted to ask if it came up, great, maybe for the community's information. When we look at the total applicant share, 25, 25, 65, you know, those numbers, I wonder if they're not offset a little bit by reductions in overtime.
The answer is it's possible. Yes, we believe that to be true. As a matter of fact, when I talked about the transfer issue, and I talked about fixing certain light items, we had originally, one of the light items we were working on was the fire station overtime account. And I originally increased that. I'm going to be probably giving you that probably sometime tomorrow, but you're going to see that that number is going back to at least where it was, because it was significantly underfunded in the past, but I had intended to increase it, but now that we're doing a SAFER grant, it's going to go back at least to where it was. So, sure. Yes, I agree with you. By adding the members here, it should reduce overtime and save us some money in that line.
Certainly. And if you'll indulge me, just one last statement to that end. I am one who has not believed very strongly in using one-time revenues or grants, if you will, for long-term projects or long-term staffing. I recognize that there is a potential issue with maintaining this level of staffing at the fire department if we can't find our own funds after the grant's expired. But I definitely see the value, and I think this council has stood behind that. And I'm glad to see that we're working to head in that direction. We have needs in this community. We've all said that time and again. I think this budget does continue to start moving us in the right direction. We still have a long way to go. Sure do. But as far as public safety, with the SAFER grant opportunity to increase staffing at the fire department, working toward finishing central dispatch for police and fire, and some of the other things that have been summarized that we're about to discuss in committee. I'm pleased to see the way that things have shaken out. And thank you also for addressing needs of the schools. With that, I'm done for now. I'm sure someone else has questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. First of all, thank you, Ron, and to your team for putting this all together. I know it's been a long few hours and few months taking care of this for us and for the community. I want to thank you. I know we sat down and talked back in, I think it was August. There's 4 of us around the table about the roads issue. So I'm glad to see actually the money go into the roads. It's a start. We didn't have a start before besides state funds, grants, and stuff like that. The one question I did have on it, and a little off the budget part, but I know when we looked at it, it was going to cost about $23,000 to do another study, because that 2012 study obviously is 7 years old. That $20 million is now probably has increased a little bit, especially with the conditions of our roads. That grant that we received, have we received that grant yet?
Yeah, we have received the grant, and I know that Heather is working on lining up the company to do the new update. I'm not exactly sure what the status is at this moment, but I know that Heather's been working on it.
And I know to renew that every year, because I know from 2012 up until 2019 that hadn't been renewed. Let's say 2013 on up, hasn't been renewed. But is that something that we're going to build in the budget
That's
down the road?
one of the things that's not in this budget. It's one of the things we're going to have to consider in next year's budget.
In next year's,
and
right.
We're going to be able to continue running that program. And you're right, it's correct. It's constantly updating that pavement management plan.
Right.
So that's one of the things that she'll be looking at as she puts out the proposal and moves forward.
Okay, thank you. Last thing that I do have before we start delving into the budget itself here in the next few months, I want to thank you. The other day, we sat down and had a nice conversation, all of us, about the grant that the firefighters were applying for. So I want to thank you for that open-mindedness. We did talk about the reduction in overtime here and there, but I want to thank all the counselors, including Karen, for sitting down with us, the chiefs, yourself the other day, to open mind about these gentlemen and ladies that are protecting our first responders here and within our community. I look forward to, I believe it's April 4th, the next PPMP meeting about the police as well, and in the future that we're working on right now with the DPW. So I'm glad I appreciate you putting that inside your slides, and that's really all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
So if I could respond, Mr. Chairman, I also want to show my appreciation to the town councilors. I got to admit, I'm very conservative in putting together a budget, and I was going back and forth on applying for the SAFER grant and what we should do there. The chairman of the town council and you were instrumental in convincing me, and we had a lot of interesting and important discussion about that issue. And I'm very comfortable after that discussion of adding in that SAFER grant for this year. But I got to admit, it took me a little bit to get there. And all of us learn from these conversations. So I think that dialogue was really important in this particular issue.
Thank you. Councilor Steves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick questions. First of all, is this budget online yet?
No, I don't want to put it online until after you've seen it. So it will be online tomorrow, but I try to have you guys have the first opportunity. We've had this issue in the past where you read it online. I don't think that's a good idea. I've kind of learned my lesson on that. Okay. So it'll be online tomorrow for people to see.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. Excuse me. You mentioned 2.5%. I'm assuming based on what you were reading that's 2.5% only coming from the schools themselves.
So the 2.5% is the tax increase of the entire town budget. So that 2.5% is the tax increase of the total amount that we would have to levy. Now, what I was showing you is what would happen if we added $105,000 in expense side of the budget, how that would impact the tax levy. It's not just a school account. I'm just demonstrating what would happen if we increase the school budget by that much of money, 105, and then again, it brings it up to 3, and then if you add it by another $105,000, it would bring it up to 3.5.
Okay, because the projection model page specifically says the property tax levy goes up 3.85%.
Yeah, but again, you got to reduce it, and that's after free cash is the clear way to say it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Where's the sign? After new growth.
Yeah. And you said in new growth of being $284,900, based specifically on what?
That's based on, and Will takes a very conservative method in looking at any new growth, and I think it's on a 5-year model. Yeah, Will, come on up. But I think it's a long-term model that he evaluates what he believes the potential new growth is, and he can give you his formula for that.
Yeah, I do take a very conservative approach to it. 284 is the average of the last 5 years.
Okay.
2 years ago, I think we were at 434. Last year was 252. So it's the average of 5 years.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Okay, I want to also reiterate what Councilor Nash said a little while ago about taking some of that increase in stabilization and putting it to roads. I think that would be helpful this year, especially considering
to that point,
the state of our roads are pretty
Councilor
atrocious.
Steves, we're going to be giving you a free cash distribution, as we always do, so we'll go through all that free cash distribution. That should be and is a important discussion to have during that meeting.
Right.
So we can consider that. Right now, that 300 grand is there. The purpose is to build up that stabilization fund, but we can look at that issue. But I will say that it is important to build up that stabilization fund too. So it's kind of a balance, roads versus that, but I think it's a worthy discussion to have.
Well, I know stabilization is important too. Also, you mentioned earlier about the $100,000 road funds, additional road funds being in your special articles item, and I was curious. It mentions here, the item here specifically calls for only a $46,000 increase from what last year's was. What else is in that line item?
Okay, I'm going to ask Karen to talk about that because some things came off of that line item. That's why it's not the full 100 grand. But I did not ask her what came off from the previous year. Karen, do you remember specifically in that articles account what came off in that account? Oh, okay, I do remember. And you guys may remember as well, we had a settlement for a legal case with the school system. That was put into that article. That is now gone, so that was the 50 grand that was reduced.
Okay. And also, does the council slight increase include extra money for the clerk for subcommittee minutes?
For the what?
Extra money for the clerk to do subcommittees?
No, that's not what that money is. That money, I think, is for the MMA meetings. Is that what we did the increase on the council budget? Do you remember? Yeah, it wasn't for that. So if you guys are still interested in that, we need to have a discussion during the process. But I think that was because we're seeing more counselors who are interested in attending the MMA professional development. So I think that is what's in that account. But truthfully, I'd have to look at the budget to see it. It's right in our budget book. If you want to take a look in the budget book under that, you'll see that too.
Okay. I guess that's it for the moment. I'm sure there'll be a lot more details when we actually get into the numbers.
Yep, it's in your budget books that you've been all presented, and we'll discuss it extensively in the subcommittee process.
Oh, actually, I do have two more related to the schools specifically. I don't know if you can answer this or if Karen can answer it, but with the Chapter 70 money going up 1.2 million, where do things stand as far as the permanent Chapter 70 reform? Because I don't honestly, unless something really permanently changes, I don't see that being consistent.
All right, so that's the governor's proposal.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of discussion with Seth and the school system about that, and I think he's here tonight. Truthfully, it's the governor's proposal. Right now, that's expected to be the low number, the conservative number. As you know, the Senate and the House are consistently looking at that issue, and it is a complex issue. But in terms of the State Department of Education, the conversations that both Jeff and Seth have had with the State Department of Education, they feel that that's a good number to be used for budget purposes.
Okay, and as far as the charter school, how do you see any? Because that also seems likely to be it's nice to see a decrease there, but I also see that being an iffy place for consistency too. So,
I'll say this:
comments on that?
Whenever you're using state projections, it's always difficult, Councilor Steves.
Right.
So you have to use the most reasonable number. We have a lot of discussions with state officials about that, and we feel comfortable that, again, that number's okay. But I can't guarantee anything until the legislature actually passes their budget and gets to the final product. But we are comfortable at this point projecting those numbers. We try to be conservative in all categories of revenues. But it is, in fact, you're right. Something could change. If the legislature decided to cut that somehow, we'd have to deal with it. But truthfully, I think there's a lot of political pressure this year and a lot of intention to improve education funding. And I think that's sort of the mode of everybody's train of thought. So I'm expecting that those increases will come forward. So I'm actually very comfortable with it, but I can't guarantee it because it's not under our control.
I was actually more thinking just kind of more in terms of future years more than this year.
We got to deal one year at a time.
Yeah, I get that. I get that completely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councilman?
And thank you, Councilor Steves. You're actually, like, the last part of your discussion was what I was going to bring up. What about next year? I mean, if we get that extra $1.2 million that for the Chapter 70 money, what happens next year if we only get like 50,000?
So what happens usually there, as Councilor Mann, is that becomes part of the base. So that will be at least what we get, and then it'll be what the increase above that is for next year. What could happen is instead of getting a big increase next year, we could get 180 grand or 200,000, a lot less. But when the state gives you that base number, it's put in, they never cut it. It's really a cut to the increase, not a cut to what the base number is.
So I guess to follow up on what you just said, last year you said we only get like 60-some thousand.
It didn't cut the base. We got the same base number, but in addition, we only got like 69 grand. So it wasn't that they cut the funding, but they didn't give us any increased funding, and that's what killed us last year. Last year it was like 69 grand. This year they gave us $1.2 million. So a big increase. So it tells you the difference in what happens with your budget when you get a small increase versus a significant increase. So, we expect we'll get at least the same amount next year. The question is how much more, because costs go up.
Okay. Yes, costs do go up. So, and then a question on the, like if we were to go up a 0.5% or 1% to like from the 2.5 to the 3.0. So what type of impact would that actually be per year for the tax?
You mean the average single-family home impact?
Yeah.
I don't know where Will calculated that number of what the average tax increase would be at 2.5 versus a 3 and a 3.5?
Per year.
Per year?
So there are two factors to this. Overall to the town, after new growth, at the town manager's recommended budget, everybody's increase would be about 2.5%. However, every year the property values fluctuate based on the market conditions. So I can't be specific on any individual property, but to the town itself, his proposed budget would be a 2.5% increase, which means assuming property values all change in the same rate, which they won't, they would be 2.5% to a single family, 2.5% to a multifamily, if that was the case. It's not going to be, but you can't get into those specifics because that's all what ifs. That work is going to be done over the summer. So I think for planning purposes, like happens at all 351 communities, you have to use the numbers you have, which is 2.5% or the 3% or 3.5%.
I guess I'm talking about dollar amounts. Like, are the taxes going to increase by $100 a year?
Well, using what I just said as a base and using my faulty memory as part of it, I think the average single family this year was about $3,800. So 2.5% on top of that, assuming values didn't fluctuate, which they will, but use it for planning purposes, that's what you have to use.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to add to that point, I want to be really clear here, because this became a lot of confusion in last year's budget, right? Because we say 2.5% increase, that's among the total assessed value of all the properties. If residential property goes up higher and commercial property goes lower, it'll be more than 2.5% for the residential home and less for the commercial home. Or just the opposite. If commercial properties rise and residential properties fall, the cost to a homeowner would be less. So we don't know that. We're giving you kind of the average on the total assessed value, and that's really important that people have to understand how that impacts individuals depending upon the value of their specific home.
I guess I just worry that, people see that 0.5% increase and they're like, wow, and it actually may not be that much of a difference. And so our town may be losing out on something that we could potentially have funded. So that's what I guess is going through my mind and what I want to continue to keep in my mind and work out as we go through the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Adams?
Hey, Mr. Chair, just want to clarify. That's if the council next year votes on a single payer increase. So
I'm sorry, say again?
That's only if the council votes on the single payer increase. So that formula will change. I mean, like you had brought up, single family homes go up, commercial goes down. If the town council votes on that same as we did this year, that's all going to fluctuate. Now, if it does, and obviously that's a recommendation most years by the assessor, but if that changes, next year based on whatever the vote may be, that could also change as well, right?
That's correct. You know, it's interesting. Citizens love it when the value of their property goes up if they're ready to sell it, but it's not great if your property value goes up and you're still holding on to it because it increases your taxes. So while it's nice to see that your property is going up and increasing value and you feel like you have more equity in your property, the downside of that, the more value the property is, the more taxable it is. So, you know, it's a trade-off. It would really be nice if it stayed low right up until the time you were ready to sell and then it skyrocketed, but in life it just doesn't work that way.
Councilor Daniel?
Yes, please. I just want to clarify a bit on the stabilization fund. You're proposing a total of $3.5 million as the projected ending balance for fiscal year 2020?
Yeah, you're talking about the stabilization account?
Yes.
Yeah, so really what it is, right now, let me just get to that slide so that I can be very clear on how that works. Okay, so back in 2016, the beginning balance of the stabilization fund was $2,394,000. And you'll see in 2016, we added $275,000, which came out of free cash. And then there's interest on that money, and the ending balance at the end of 16 was $2,754,000. And then again in 2017, we added another $300,000. And after interest, it was $3,076,000. And then we added another $125,000. And it went up to $3,177,000. This year, depending upon what council chooses, if they support what I did, we'll be adding another $300,000, and that'll give us an ending balance with, and you'll see interest has 2 stars only because that's interest through 2/28 of 2019. So this is a gradual increase in our savings account from the $2,394,000 to the $3,546,000. So that's, think of it as a savings account. We just keep adding money every year to our savings account.
Now, that savings account amounts to, the projected ending balance amounts to 6.2% of the budget?
Of the whole budget, correct. The state recommendation is at least 5%.
5%.
That's the kind of minimum recommendation. This shows that we're, no, 6.2 isn't way over the minimum, but it's a good rate, and it shows that $1 million made a good impact to safely put us in the range we're expected to be at.
Okay, but the state's looking
Yeah,
for
we wouldn't
5.
want to, truthfully, we wouldn't want to go much lower than 6.2. So that's one of the things when we look at this free cash distribution is we maybe want to add a little bit of roads, but again, that's going to lower that 6.2% number. So we want to be cautionary as to how much we would take in free cash to pour towards roads. So that, I think, is a relevant discussion and important one we have when we discuss free cash disbursement.
Okay, but you're saying the state says that we should be at least at 5.
The range is a minimum of 5. I think they like to go to 8 point something. They give you a range thing. And that's frankly, I don't want to get too technical here, but that's of all, not stabilization accounts, reserve accounts, all reserves accounts, so it's a total. So we have another $100,000 that goes into our reserve account. That should be calculating that number. There's a few other minor accounts that would also be calculating that number, but it's a minimum of 5%, and it runs, I mean, some towns I would think are, you know, really wealthy towns tend to be in the 8% range, right? But our number is not bad. It's reasonably, and it's where it should be.
Okay. Thank you.
Confirm? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for the presentation this evening. A lot to digest. Couple, as far as time, so tonight is the presentation to Town Council. And what is the date that you wish to have this Town Council adopt this budget?
So obviously, the first part of the process is really going to be setting up the subcommittee meeting. So
right, I'm
you're
asking
working
what
with
is
the
the
subcommittee
date so
chairs.
that we can back out of that.
What's the actual date that we would have the finalizing of the budget? What's the approximate date for that?
Yeah, I think it's May. But
Monday, May.
I know the charter is specific. I'm just looking for their date. So.
Looks like Monday, May 20th, Mr. Chairman. And we'll be setting up scheduling meetings. Just please keep in mind that April 11th, I'll be away for a week's vacation. I'd like to be here for those hearings. So if you're a subcommittee chairman, keep in mind that as you're scheduling the meeting. And Yvonne will be working with you on that to make sure that I'm here for that meeting, but we have plenty of time to be able to get that done, to be able to present the budget in May.
Okay. And I would just ask my committee chairs to talk to their colleagues so that we're not like doing back-to-back meetings on the same night, because there's a lot of information to digest, and we want to leave adequate time for conversation and really get into the budget process. Secondly, I guess I would just request, and I'm first time going through the town side budget. I don't see anything in here as to we have actual budgets, adjusted budgets, but there is nothing in this budget that says this is what we've spent to date. I guess I would request that when whatever department's coming forward on the, before that, that.
Is it in the book? I know we give you quarterly reports, but Karen says
What's
it
that?
is in the book.
The actual? So that's what we've spent to date?
Yeah, so what's
Okay.
the date for that?
Okay, so that's not the actual budget that was
Through
adopted.
February, where you got it through right now? What's the actual through February this year so far? Through the February payroll, so that'll change as we move in time.
Okay,
but-
so the actual per 1 through 12 is the actual to date
Yep.
as of 3/20. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And, okay. So that's all I have. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, just to let you know, too, that the 6-year capital plan has been updated, and you'll be receiving that soon as well. Tomorrow, I will be sending you the transfer line items that I've been talking about with you as well, and we are working on the free cash distribution. So those are all things that will be happening through the process. I do want to let you know the former town council, there's a requirement that the capital budget that I have a public hearing on that. The former council chair liked me to have that as part of the town council meeting. So I'll be working with you to try to make that to the beginning of a town council meeting to have that 6-year capital plan presentation to the public so that hopefully it encourages more people to come to the meeting. Okay? And thank you all. Very good questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Uh-huh. Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Vote to confirm the reappointment of Melinda Ernst Funier as treasurer collector for a 3-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item 17, vote to confirm the reappointment of Wilfred B. Canoyer as principal assessor for a 3-year term effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Discussion?
Second.
Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item 18, vote to ratify the agreement between the town of Southbridge and McClure Engineering for the design and construction of the proposed animal shelter for the amount of, and it should have read, $26,785, not including construction oversight rate of $85 per hour, not to exceed $3,400 for an estimated construction period of 20 weeks.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Steves.
I recall that wasn't agenda. I don't have the minutes in front of me, but we did recommend approving it.
Yep, thank you. And this is the engineering that would go forward for the animal shelter, and hopefully Bay Path, we get that all squared away. Plans to Bay Path to build in the fall. And I know they're looking forward to helping the town on that project. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 19, vote to ratify the health insurance renewal for Blue Cross Blue Shield plans effective July 1st, 2019.
Second.
Discussion?
That was also at GenGov, and I can't remember exactly the exact number, but it was well below 1% increase for this year, so, which is, thank you. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, all present. Item 20, vote to adopt Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23D for the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Board of Health with the following conditions of use. 1, the chairperson shall have the choice of recording by audio or video. 2, all such recordings shall be kept until the statute of limitations regarding retention of meeting documents has expired as required by law. And 3, any individual member may invoke this exemption no more than 3 times per fiscal year. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Council Adams?
So reading over the law itself, at number 3, it says any individual member may invoke this exemption no more than 3 times per fiscal year, which I understand that. But it also states in there, it says no more than a single session. Right. Shouldn't that be added into this itself?
Counselor Steves?
Yeah, actually, we specifically didn't mention that because the state law requires anybody using this exemption, they can only miss one session of any given hearing. That's the way it's set up. You can't use it more than once for any specific hearing. The state, you cannot. Say if you have a hearing that runs over 3 days, you can only miss one of those 3 days.
Which I understand that.
Yeah. So that's the issue. But since that's already in state law, we didn't see any need to mirror that in what we were saying, because that's already state law. But what we're doing here is we are adopting that particular law, but we're adding a few requirements to it for local application.
Okay. All right.
But that doesn't change the state law itself.
No, I understand that. I just didn't know if we wanted to add that in there to the state, but only once per single session.
I mean, we can if everybody wants to. It just reiterates what state law says. I don't have a problem either way.
Neither do I. I just want to make sure. I just want to make something clear on that one. That's all.
Okay. So it's a pleasure of the council. If you guys want to add it in, I have no problem with that.
It's clearly articulated in the law.
Yeah.
It says no more than a single session.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Did you have something else?
No.
Councilor Mann?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I guess I'm a little confused on this, so this is just basically if a member of the planning board missed a hearing, they would be able to examine the evidence on the video okay. Half the time that stuff isn't videotaped.
Well, the issue, that's why we tried to make sure that we have it so that it says audio or video. That was partially based on one of the planning board members, Mike Loyne. As you know, he's an engineer. He's been through numerous towns dealing with numerous planning boards and so forth. And he was pointing out that almost all of the towns that he goes through that have accepted this exemption, they do audio recordings. So we thought that made sense. We figured it would make sense I mean, personally, I would prefer it to be video. But in some cases, it's not. In some cases, it's not really practical to videotape. In some rooms, you can't see things. It might be an issue of maybe going forward. Once we kind of see how the system works, we can maybe set it up so that if we have extra money, we can put video capacities in some of these rooms. Obviously, they can always get in touch with the cable people and have them use some of their cameras. I mean, they're after all public boards as well, just like any other board can do.
So,
go ahead.
I guess, Chu, how many, I mean, I know you need a quorum to hold a meeting.
Right.
But, I mean, is this only for one member, or would it be allowed for 2 members? Now you got 2 members. Like, I don't like that. I believe that they should be there.
Well,
they should be able to hear, watch, see. I mean, that all takes, that all matters when you're examining stuff and trying to make a decision on something.
Mm-hmm. I agree in the sense that the way the boards work is that they're, say, for example, you've got all the members of the planning board and they're almost always there, but if somebody decides to, if for some reason has to miss a specific session, they will still be able to vote on it, provided that they have certified that they have either heard the video or heard the audio or seen the video and been able to check out the documents.
Yeah, I just, you know what, I'm not in favor of this, and I'm not going to support it because I believe that the person, they should actually be there. I mean, you go into court, you're not going to, okay, there's an 11-member jury. Oh, one's going to be absent, but they're going to listen to the recording. I mean, that just like, you know, I'm not saying that would ever happen. I'm just using that as an example. Mm-hmm. So I believe that they should be there. And I'm not going to support this. That's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Adams?
So to bring this back up, obviously it's in the law, but also in the law it talks about evidence shall include audio or video recording. Right. So you put that also in here. So why not one and not the other?
Well, we can certainly do that. As I said, we can throw it in if everybody wants to. If you look at the way we phrase it, though, the law says the evidence shall be audio or video, and in this case, what we're doing is we're giving the chairman the option to choose one or the other, as opposed to because part of the discussion was that we talked a little bit about whether or not we wanted to require one or the other. And but it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to do so, because...
Well, the state law says or.
Well,
so
that's true.
It gives them the authority, gives the town the authority to choose or pick and choose. And
yeah, exactly. So we could have theoretically, as the council, we could theoretically have said, we want you to do video. But I don't think we have, at the moment, I don't think we have the capacity to do video for all of these kinds of hearings. We might. I don't know if we do. But I thought it made sense, based on the discussion that we were having, that it would be more functional for the boards to have that option. And give it to the chairman, because it's basically part of the function of running the meeting, as far as chairman, that's what chairmen do. So that's what we were thinking.
Right, okay. So I'd like to amend this.
Okay.
And basically at the end where it says per fiscal year, I'd like to put, but only once per single session.
Per single session or per single hearing?
Session.
Because
stated by the law.
Because that's a single session of a hearing.
Okay, of the hearing then.
Okay.
We could add that in there as well.
Of a given hearing, okay.
But only what? I'm sorry. Only.
So it'd be, but only once per single session of the hearing.
Only once per single session?
I think to clarify, what I think you're trying to say, if I may say, Dave, is that I think what you're trying to say is that one session of a given hearing.
So I'm just going to go right off that. No more than a single session of the hearing.
Yeah, of a given hearing, yeah. Okay.
Single section of the hearing?
But so it would state right after per fiscal year, but only.
Okay.
One session?
But
I'm sorry. Yeah, but only once per single session of the hearing.
Of the hearing, okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Discussion on the amendment? Councilor Nash?
No, this needs to go back to subcommittee if we're going to sit here and do this again on Mullen Rule. That's my feeling, so I'll be voting no on the amendment and on the motion. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, so the amendment is to add, after per fiscal year, only once per single session of the hearing.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? So it's 3-3. And Councilor DePietro? So that motion doesn't carry.
All right.
So it's not amended. Okay. Is there any other discussion or motions? You wanted to go back to subcommittee. You didn't have a motion, though, for that. Okay. Any further discussion? What's, Councilor Mann?
I'd like you to do a roll call vote on this.
It was already planned, Councilor.
Okay, thank you.
I'm asking, is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none? Roll call?
Counselor Adams?
No.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor DePietro? Yes. Counselor Jovan?
No.
Counselor Manna?
No.
Counselor Nash? Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Failed? 3-4?
Yes.
Item 21, reading the amendment to change the Southbridge Code of Bylaws. No, the motion failed. Failed. Nobody wanted to send it back to subcommittee, so there's no motion to send it back. 21, reading of the amendment to change Southbridge Code of Bylaws, Section 5-102.2, effective September 4th, 2014, to reflect the removal of the sentence for not less than a 12-month period to mirror the Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 57. The Code of Bylaw, Section 5-102.2, Notice of Tax Delinquency. The tax collector or other municipal official responsible for records of all municipal taxes, assessments, betterments, and other municipal charges, hereinafter referred to as the tax collector, shall annually furnish to each department, board, commission, or division, hereinafter referred to as the licensing authority, that issues licenses or permits, include renewals and transfers, a list of any person, corporation, or business enterprise hereinafter referred to as the party that has neglected or refused to pay any local taxes, fees, assessments, betterments, or other municipal charges, and that such party has not filed in good faith a pending application for abatement of such tax or a pending petition before the Appellate Tax Board. This is the first reading of this bylaw amendment. Any questions? Town Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank our tax collector treasurer, Mindy Fournier, for bringing this issue forward. She may want to comment about it, but I do want to make a brief statement because I really want the public who is watching this discussion to hear what we're doing here tonight to be very clear. There seems to be a number of people in Southbridge that will say they're either late or delinquent in paying their taxes, and yet they want to do development in town. They want to do building in town. And I think this is going to send a clear message that we're not going to allow building permits to be granted for people who don't pay their taxes on time. So, you know, some people think that they can use the town, they can delay and delay and delay paying their tax bill and use that money in developing some property. This amendment basically says if your taxes are not up to date, then you're not getting a building permit. We need to put more pressure on developers to actually pay when they're supposed to in terms of their taxes. We have made a great effort, thanks to the support of Town Council, to go after people who are not keeping their property maintained properly. We have more building inspectors out there inspecting properties to put pressure on people to maintain a safe and decent building so they don't end up eventually going into foreclosure by the town. This is another part of that. We need to ensure that people pay their taxes. I do want to make it very clear that either for public safety matters or health matters, that would override this. So the the inspectional services director knows that in certain situations where it's, you know, somebody's life could be endangered or somebody's health could be endangered, that would override this particular section. With that, I know that Mindy would like to speak, Mr. Chairman, as well.
Mindy?
Thank you. The next section of our bylaw, which is 5-102.3, starts with the licensing authority may deny, revoke, or suspend any license or permit, including renewals and transfers of any party whose name appears on said list. So that's what you're not seeing on the agenda, is that the licensing authority may deny these permits for these individuals or companies, whatever it is.
Okay. So the only distinction is for not less than 12-month period. That was the only thing that's being taken out of this.
Correct.
And that license is to not only building permits, but it's license to carry. If somebody wants a license to carry, you have to have your taxes all up to date, correct? Because we're a licensing authority for that?
There's a few licenses that are not, I have to find that list. I don't know. I don't think I have that list with me. There are some exceptions to this. You can't hold up I know it's a birth certificate, a death certificate, a burning permit. You can't hold up for this. I'm not sure about the license to carry. I'd have to look at that.
All right, we can follow up on that in the next reading. But,
sure.
Okay, so, all right. Yep. All right, thank you. Anything else? Thank you. Councilor Steves?
Yeah, just a couple of, okay. The section that you're referring to there, Mindy, is the following. The following is not, this law does not apply to the following. Burning permits, bicycle permits, which I've never seen anybody actually getting one, sale of articles for charitable purposes, fishing, hunting, or trapping licenses, children work permits, what are those? Clubs, associations dispensing food or beverage licenses, dog licenses, theatrical events and public exhibition permits, or marriage licenses. Right. Those are exempt.
So a license to carry would be one that...
So basically everything else that you would need a permit for or a license for through the town government applies to this law except for those things.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Mann?
Through you. Yes, Councilor Steves, you're right. And I believe a child permit is like for somebody 14 or under or something like that.
That is correct.
You have to get a special permit. But that's all actually, it's right there on the back of our, what we call Mr. San Angelo and Mindy. So, and it talks about the fishing, hunting, and stuff. But I think this is really good. I'm really happy to see that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Next reading will be in the next town council meeting. Okay, Council's Forum, Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I received a letter from Priscilla Gemas, who's the parish council president for St. George Greek Orthodox Church. And she sends greetings to us on behalf of the Reverend Dr. Emmanuel Klapsis, the parish council, and the parishioners of St. George. And the reason she's sending greetings and thanks is because of the ceremony that the town council participated in last Friday, honoring Spiro Billis for being the oldest resident in town at 105 years and 7 months. We had a wonderful little ceremony in his home. His family was very gracious, and I'd also like to extend those thanks to Councilors Adams, Steves, and Jovan for their help, to Yvonne Tortis, to the cable TV crew, to Representative Durant, Senator Fatman, and a special thank you goes out to George Vassell for his being able to get there and make a presentation on behalf of the local VFW. It was a wonderful ceremony. It was a great time. The family was thrilled, and Spiro was on top of his game. Boy, did he have a good time. It was really remarkable. It was wonderful, and it's the kind of thing that makes it fun being a counselor. I'd also like to say that I was at a function on Saturday night for a local charity, or two charities. The function took place at LaSalle Hall, and I'd like to give a shout out to LaSalle Hall because they were on top of their game as well. Remarkable evening. The place was dressed to the nines. Great food. The hall looked wonderful. Margaret Ferrin went out of her way and did a marvelous job. And I'm very pleased to say that it's a local business, and it's a business that I would actively support. I have supported it in the past myself with family functions, and I encourage residents of Southbridge to not only look out of town for function halls, but to look in town for function halls as well. LaSalle is a wonderful place, but there are also some clubs in town that do catering and have function halls as well. So it's just a reminder to everyone, you know, if you can keep it in town, there's some great facilities here. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just a reminder, June 11th is coming around the corner. Please pull your papers if you are looking at running for the chair or any other elected positions within the town. I didn't seriously start thinking about it until the end of February after a nice long vacation for a week, and you know, I think that changed my mind watching what was happening up here. So I hope the citizens will go out there and pull papers to run for something here and volunteer your time. Lastly, I want to thank Councilor Daniel for spearheading this for Mr. Billis. And it was great to see Mr. Vassell as well. But yes, you're right, Mr. Billis was on top of his game. It was a great time, and I want to thank his family for allowing us in their home to celebrate that with him and with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor DePietro? Do you have anything, Councilor's Forum?
I'm sorry.
Anything for Councilor's Forum, sir?
I do not, Mr. Chair. I didn't realize you were addressing it.
Thank you, sir.
Usually they start over again.
I mixed it up tonight, you know? Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know it's sometimes hard to hear up here, so we'll give you a pass on that. I barely heard him. Anyway, appreciate the showing tonight in support of the police department, promotion of Sergeant Chase, the auxiliary appointments, and I'll also thank the town manager and the department heads for the effort that went into preparing the proposed fiscal year 2020 budget. When it comes to the budget, I know that we have a lot of work ahead of us as a council. I actually do enjoy participating in budget season. I've been doing it a long time now, even though I've only served as a counselor for just under 2 years. It's something about which I believe most of us are passionate, doing the right thing to look out for the best interests of the taxpayer in this community, but what's more, to do the right thing for the community. And I will challenge my colleagues up here to look at this budget in its entirety in advance of any committee meeting, because year after year what I see is something that I haven't been able to express very, very clearly, but I hope that we get an overall perspective of what this budget is and the changes that we might be able to suggest to it. You know, we go through and we scrutinize line item by line item, and we cut $10 here and $50 there when we have things given to us, such as you've seen in tonight's presentation. There's $100,000, just as an example. Don't call me about being anti-schools, but $100,000 more out of town funds going toward the schools. Maybe something like that might be better used for roads. Who knows? Something to discuss. When we get into these committee meetings and we're looking at line items, it's necessary, but it's something that we spend way too much time doing when we could just look at the big picture. And I hope that we do a little bit more of that. This council has been very effective for the first 9 months. This is the last meeting to end the third quarter. And we're doing the right things. We're moving this community forward. And I thank everyone that's still sitting here. Of the 7 of us that are still here, we're making things happen. And I'm appreciative of that going into the future, looking at fiscal year 2020. And I'm on my soapbox right now, but I didn't want to steal the town manager's thunder or hold anybody else up from asking questions and making points. There's room in what the town manager presented to shift some things, and I will be making those suggestions if nobody else does. But I also would like to think that when it gets right down to it, we don't need to have a 2.5% tax increase. Just in what we saw tonight, we can be a little lower, and I think there is room for optimism on that end. Next, I'll bring up something I saw. I'm not on Facebook much anymore, but I saw that Beautify Southbridge Day is coming. I don't think it was announced. I don't know the day, but I expect that my wife and I are going to be out this year, and I'll challenge all members of the town council to do what they can if it's all possible. And just a quick note, I appreciate Councilor Daniel bringing up another shining star in our community with the LaSalle Reception Center. We have shining stars in this community. We have good kids in our schools. We have good athletes. And I certainly hope that we can do a little bit better than maybe I've done in the past and make some time to go out and support our school athletic programs this spring. I can't wait now to get out and see what's going on with the baseball or with the softball and show those kids that we do care. It's not just the parents and the brothers and the sisters and the friends. This community needs to rally behind the students in our schools. It isn't just about the academics. It's about creating an environment where every student can be more than just a student, but a good active participant in our community. And if that's the way they contribute, God bless them, and I'm there to support them. It's been a good 9 months, and I'll thank every single one of you. I really mean that. I haven't been around a lot lately with the new job, but we're doing good things, and I look forward to much more progress to finish budget season and move into the election. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Points well taken on, I was trying to look up to see if I had the Beautify Southbridge, but I couldn't find it real quick. Your point is well taken on the budget process. I think having done multitude budgets on the other side with the school, we really scrutinize those. I know as a school committee, we would take a look at every school, have them come in and justify their expenses as to why there was, what was the expense, and have them justify. I think the same has to be taken on this side to say, if it's needed, but justify it and come up with a plan. So thank you all. Look forward to the process here on this side. Did you have that date?
I do. It's, go figure. Saturday, May 18th. Rain date is Saturday, May 19th. Starts at 8:30 at the town hall.
Thank you, Council.
Mr. Chairman, if people don't know, that's people go around and clean up the roads and the sidewalks. I didn't say that. I don't know if everyone knows. Thank you.
Well, we'll make sure that we keep announcing that as it comes forward. So, all right, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'd like to touch on what Councilor Nash said with regards to the budget, and nothing against the school, but the $100,000 or $200,000 could be used for someplace else. I agree some on the roads, but I also agree some within our police department to get it better staffed. So that's something that I'll be looking at too, and I look forward to working with my fellow councilors with regards to the budget. Over the weekend, I really had a chance to look at the my packet. I did not, and some other information that was given to me. I've been super busy at work with a new position that I've just started, and I have to, I've been working like overtime. I'm talking till 11 o'clock at my house at night. So I did send some information over to our chair with a concern with regards to why I didn't see the town manager's contract on the agenda. And then I brought up the fact that we clearly missed, from what I see in the charter. The charter affords us to appoint or reappoint in 411, and you can pass these around if you'd like, and in 4-1-4 for the contract. And I can't really get into details from what I understand, but I feel that this should all go back on the agenda for an appointment or reappointment of the town manager and to vote on the contract and for it to be transparent. And also, I did discuss with the town chair that I am filing an open meeting law violation with regards to the February 25th executive session. As he did read the statement clearly, he did not declare that we were going to, he didn't declare at the end of the statement that we were going to, there was a possibility to go back into public session to vote, and on the agenda itself, it did not have an agenda item making it transparent for the citizens that we may be going back to vote, or there may be a vote on the town manager's contract. And that, to me, didn't afford the citizens to come up and speak on the agenda items. So if you could pass this to our chair, and that is all. Oh, it's going to be really nice out this weekend, so thank God spring's here. Happy spring, and that's all. Thank you.
So Councilman had discussed this earlier with me. I respectfully believe that we had followed the correct process. However, she is in her right to file this complaint, and we will take it and respond accordingly. We have 14 days to respond. So I will make sure that this copy gets out, because there are not extra copies for my fellow councilors that hopefully we would have had. So I'll disseminate the complaint to everybody tomorrow. I will have the secretary of our make that available. We must review it within 14 business days, which is 20 to 22 calendar days. So I will look at the calendar to schedule a meeting, and I will discuss and let everybody know how we'll respond to this. I believe that we've done everything properly, but again, it's everybody's opinion. So at this, I'll just leave it at this right now. Her allegation or her complaint is that we didn't follow the correct process. I did say that if the chair so declares to vote, the question is whether that is the appropriate, I believe, process. So therefore, we will review that. It'll be up to us to respond accordingly, and we will do everything legally, whether it is, but we'll do this within the correct process. Thank you. Any further? Councilor Steves.
Thank you, if I can talk. A couple of quick things. First off, just want to point out that this weekend from Thursday through Saturday is the library's book sale. So if you want to get a lot of quality, cheap books, by all means get down there and help support the Friends of the Library. The Art Center is doing their tea time thing on Sunday the 31st at 2 p.m. If you're into tea and costumes, I think. And on April 3rd, there's a public hearing for the Right Choice Suboxone Clinic over on Central Street. There's back-to-back hearings, actually, the zoning board and the planning board. I think they start at 5, but I could be wrong, so please double-check that. And also, last night, I went, Morgan and I and a couple of other people went down to Northampton to do a town hall forum presentation on the Green New Deal with Senator Markey and Representative McGovern. And McGovern mentioned that he's planning on organizing one for closer to here in Worcester sometime in the near future, but he doesn't have a date yet. If somebody who's interested in what's going on and on a federal level and some of these concerns that some of us will bring up on concerns about climate change and a variety of other related issues, and if you're interested in the bigger picture, since we keep talking about the bigger picture, that's definitely a bigger picture issue. So please try to keep people informed of when those are happening when I find out. Other than that, that's it I had for tonight, and the next meeting date will be Monday, April 8th at 7 here in the chambers.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you. Have a good evening.